the Chase Thomas Podcast, for people who have nothing but time to kill.
In our 22nd year, I think it's 22nd year, and I've been with ESPN about 23 years. And my friends will say to me, "Oh, so you show up, you do 30 minutes, and then you go home." Wow, you get paid a lot of money for that? Yes, I get paid a lot of money for that. I'd love to have that job. And I got an email from a guy that said, "I'm a plumber's assistant. I dropped out of high school. I've got a wife and 3 kids. And I go to the bar at night and I drink with my buddies. And they say, you should be on Around the Horn. You're better than those guys." And I said, I have no doubt you're better than I am. But you can't just show up and do it. There's actually 25 years went into preparing to be in that position. Yeah. But we spend, for the inside story for people, we have conference calls on Zoom in the morning. You're using another system, but we have a Zoom conference call every morning for an hour and a half to go over all the subjects. Yeah. And that's the way all of these programs, because I did one out of New York called Cold Pizza for years. I worked with Skip, who's now on the Fox Sports Network. And we'd get there at 3:30 in the morning and go through conferences and research for hours before we went on the air live for 2 hours every day. And so Around the Horn, just for the people who have ever watched it, we have about an hour and a half of a conference call in the morning. And then we start doing, I get up very early in the morning and go through all the stuff that I spend tonight. When we get finished here, I'll spend watching NBA games and NHL games. You want to get as familiar as you can, because this isn't like someone covering Tennessee football, and that's what they concentrate on. We have got to be at least familiar with or knowledgeable about every sport in the world, because every day. And I mean, I go to Olympics and I've covered 15 Olympics, and I show up at Olympics and I wouldn't even know how Taiwan go. Yeah. I didn't even know what it was, and I'd show up and cover it. And in Australia, I covered one of the greatest sports events of all time that nobody else was covering. That was the heavyweight championship wrestling match. And the greatest wrestler in the whole world from Russia had won 4 Olympic gold medals and never been beaten and never been scored upon. And a kid from Utah, Wyoming, beat him. I'm looking at it and I look around and there's no other press there because they're all covering the track and field. And I thought, I don't know how to cover this sport. And I had to find out in 15 minutes. Anyway, we go through the process. We do research. Then I do makeup. Have an associate who does my makeup and my hair, and we have more conversations before the show goes on. We tape in the middle of the day. It takes us about an hour and a half to do the show. So there's about, I would say, 5-6 hours a day that goes into putting together Around. So that's the same way as you spend 5 or 6 hours getting guests, preparing what you're going to do, whatever advertising, marketing you're doing. It's not just showing up, and the show did start with when they came to me and said, we're going to do a second show to Pardon Interruption, which became a very successful show on ESPN, a companion show. Yeah. And I said, we want you to be on it. You're the first person we're talking about. I said, well, what is it going to be like? And he said, like Hollywood Squares. And if you think about, if you've ever watched Around the Horn, kind of the concept where they said, you're going to be like the middle square, Paul Linda Block. And I said, is this going to be a game show? Well, in a sort of way, because we're going to score it. And people always ask me, do you know who's going to win before? I don't know until the last moment. And there are a lot of times when they go, you've won, what's your 30 seconds? I have no idea, because I didn't think I was going to win. I'd be 8 points behind. Anyway, there's a lot of work that goes into it, just like there does in your job, like I think that everybody that either is going to school or has a job realizes that it's hard work.
Yeah.
Whether you're selling insurance, whether you're a plumber's assistant, or whether you're doing television, we have fun at it, but we work at it. You have to work at it. There are mistakes made, so we redo segments. We might go too long, so we retape a segment. There are breaks to put in the highlights for the next segment. There are questions about whether that segment actually was very good, or there was a mistake made in statistics, because when you're talking fast, and you know this, when you're talking to somebody, you may not get every statistic or every team that played in the bowl correctly, or every play in the Super Bowl of the last weekend. So it's interesting. When I was in New York with ESPN for a little over 3 years, I think it was, I was doing 6 shows, 6 different shows every week that I was doing. Around the Horn, I was doing a show with Skip Bayless in the morning, a 2-hour show that was like the Today Show. That was ESPN's version of Good Morning America, called Cold Pizza. We did a show called First and 10. We did a show called First Take, which is still on the air with Stephen A. Smith. We started that. I was doing a show that was a takeoff on American Idol, and it was called Dream Job, and 12,000 applicants would compete to be on.
Was this the Wendy's one?
The
one sponsored by Wendy's? What was that? The Searching for America. I remember a Wendy's one years ago.
There were a lot of ESPN sports bars then, if you remember that one.
The ESPN Zone? Is that what it was called? ESPN Zone?
And so people could apply, and they'd have auditions at all of the ESPN shows. And they narrowed it down to 12, and I was one of the judges, like on American Idol or America's Got Talent. The winner got to be, and most of them I think were in the departments of communication, like you have been, or journalism. And they narrowed down to 12, and we would cut one a week, so it was like 13 weeks. Stu Scott, the late Stu Scott, who was one of the best guys I ever worked with, was the host of the show. I'll tell you one story that came out of that. Be interesting. Stephen A. Smith was a judge. I was a judge. Vice president of ESPN, who hired people, was a judge. There were 3 judges, 4 actually, one other. And we'd work on that for like 18 hours. It was live, but only the that was on. We would work throughout the day and the night with the 12. And so we got to the finals. We did 3 or 4 seasons of that. And we got down to the last 2. And one of them wasn't very good. He ended up doing, but they kept saying to me, he's got a great personality. Would you vote for him? So there was behind the scenes thing. That's why the only piece of advice I give to people, don't think that reality shows are for real. Well, have you ever seen the one where they go to storage units?
Hoarders or storage wars and all that. Yeah.
Put stuff in those storage units. I mean, storage units have dirty clothes in it and newspapers. Yeah. They put diamonds in there and people discover it. So all of there's no way that these shows are live. They have to be taped all day. Anyway, so they would say, the producer would say, what do you think of this guy? And I said, not very good. Well, he's got a great personality. Can you help us out here? And I said, I don't want to be put in jail for fixing a reality show. But we were down to the 2 finalists, and Stu Scott, as I said, was the host of the show. And the one guy was really good, and he ended up winning. The guy who didn't win ended up doing Pizza Hut commercials for years. So he actually became more famous than the guy who was on ESPN. And I think he's still in broadcasting at some point. So the winner got to be an anchor on ESPN, $95,000 in cash, a brand new convertible Mustang, Ford Mustang.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was a pretty good end up for whoever won. So it came down to two people. The guy who ultimately won, when he got through, Stephen A. Smith went through his harangue, and they said to me, "What do you think of it?" I said, "You were rock solid, son. You were rock solid. You," because they would turn the microphones off when they were interviewing people, and they had to overcome all sorts of obstacles. And I said, "You had a perfect show tonight." So now I got to turn to the other guy. And I said, "You were good too," because I didn't want to put him down. You were good too. You were rock. And I was trying to think, I can't say rock solid because I've already said about the other guy. What is it? I asked you, Chase, what is a word you can use after rock that would
Hard.
work? That's what I said. There was a studio audience of about, I don't know, 20 people. Stuart Scott fell on the floor laughing. Those people were going berserk. And I'm saying to the guy, "You were rock hard. You were rock hard." And I went, "That's not what you want to say on live national TV with 1 million people watching." And we laughed through that, and we had a party afterward. They brought back all the people who had been on the show, and then I came over. He said, "I think that I didn't win. But I think you have the most famous line in the history of ESPN television, and I think I can commercial out of it." And he ended up getting a Pizza Hut commercial, and they actually the advertising company, that agency that hired him, said, "We loved it when the guy called and said you were rock hard." He said, "We just thought, damn, this guy, he was rock hard." Anyway, I'm sorry, I'm going on.
No, I love that.
Good to talk about.
I mean, anyway, I love that.
Back to the first question. I knew Elvis would come to Colorado.
Nicely done, nephew. The Chase Thomas podcast. Hell yeah.